Hello! Welcome to yet another edition of Otaku's Journey. I am your host, as always. Well, I am an otaku. One of my subtitles back in the day was the Otaku King. That was a Otaku no video reference, for those of you who don't know. And, but I am, as always, your host, the archivist. And yes, I'm drunk this time, be quiet. But regardless, doesn't matter if I'm sober or not. Today we will be talking about Little Prince. I believe I talked about the Little Prince before, but let's be a bit more modern about it. Not woke, just modern. Back in the day, when I was a wee lad, there was two versions, well, technically three, but I was unaware, of The Little Prince. Now, it's a good little bedtime story. I like it. It's a good guide to children about the different kinds of adults there are out in the world, because that's what The Little Prince is. He's this quasi somewhat mythical, immortal character. He just exists. That's it. Has no real beginning. He just exists on this little planetoid out by Pluto or whatever. Out on the very fringes of our solar system is this little planet. I believe he's on planet X. My best guess would be planet X. Or maybe Xena, I'm not sure. But he's out there. And in the book and on the TV series, or cartoon series... Okay. This is what the original cartoon series looks like. That's the proper animation. That's what he looks like. In Portuguese, he looks like this. Wow! What a difference a country makes. But yes, the cartoon series, it follows closest to the book series, I believe. That there was, and I believe there was a fairy tale theater mini series, I believe, also along with that was out there. Again, I don't know all the IPs, but basically he just exists. He's on this tiny little planet. You ever seen that Rick and Morty episode, that season, what was it, 2 finale or something like that, when they go to that small planet and the gravity's so dense? Or like King Kai's planet, it's like this tiny little planet and you can just walk around it, like it's only like 100 yards in circumference or whatever, it's like that. So he's there. He just is there. I don't recall him ever being explained as to how he gets there, what his origins are, where he comes from. He's just there, and he has this very simple life. It's like a country house life. He has a little shack, and I don't know what this kid subsists on. I don't know, but his job is to, he takes it upon himself to clean out the lava vents on his planet and water the most annoying character in this whole damn thing, Rose, if I remember correctly what her name is, because she is a rose. She is a anthropomorphic rose character. Goody. Now, I've only seen one other character like this, and that was in an Audible story I've listened to while delivering, called Even Space Dragons Need Love, I believe it was called. And she's kind of basically a tsundere, if you want to kind of classify her. She's this tiny little, like, half girl from the waist up, half flower. And she kind of gets into tiffs with our little prince, because I don't think he has a name. Does he have a name? I don't think he has a name. He's just Prince travels the universe. Little Prince or anything. Oh yeah, B-612. That's his little planetoid. Rose Girl, arrival of Swifty, otherwise space, right, the birds. Okay, much like the Little Mermaid, there's, I guess, Swifty, the wise and witty space bird. Remember, this is back in the day when people didn't know how space really worked, up until like Space Ghost Coast to Coast or the Jetsons, where you can survive in deep space. It's fine. There's air up there too. So yeah. The Little Prince would listen to, much like Scuttle from The Little Mermaid, like, what's on Earth? What is over there? I should go over there and, check it out. So he would, and I'm not kidding you on this, he would get a butterfly net, and, well, those kind of like two different versions of how he would get to Earth. In the books and cartoon series, what he would do is use a butterfly net and grab a hold of a shooting star and fly himself to the inner planets of the solar system. Now, on his way, he would stumble across what it basically equates to different types of adults. And you would see pompous jerks, just being selfish jerks. And that's what the Little Prince would come across and be baffled by. He'd be baffled by, well, why? Like, why would you want things? Because Little Prince is not a selfish brat. He's a very altruistic character, to the point of almost being bland. Yeah, he's that pure of heart. But he's not an idiot. He just doesn't know things. So when he comes across an adult who says, I'm basically stand-in for a banker, or something like that, he's perplexed. He's like, why would you? He keeps asking, well, why? Well, why this or why that? Well, why would you act like that? And the adults would still try to answer their one-note or baseline questions. I know it's like the storm in the Capitol building all over again, where it's like, you're only going to get the one answer, no matter what you ask them. You're only going to get the one answer. So it's like that. So it's like there's no talking to these people. So he continues onward to each. Like, he does it like 3 or 4 times before he gets to Earth. Then when he finally gets to Earth, he goes on many adventures, depending on what the book series says, depending on what the cartoon series says. He has, which is what I saw, he runs into people. This is one guy who was inventing the hot air balloon. I remember that. In the movie series, he comes across a pilot, and what it is the pilot is trying to, well, much like this guy, sort of. I'll try to explain the best I can. In the movie, the late 70s movie, with such and such famous actor, who was doing the, what was it, Spirit of St. Louis, crossing the Atlantic in one go type of thing, which was also another really great film, might I add, for a guy stuck in an airplane for about 90% of the film. Yeah. Basically, he was trying to do that, or he was the guy doing that. I'm not entirely sure which one was which, but it's like that. And he crash lands in the Sahara, if I remember correctly, and suddenly Little Prince just comes out of nowhere. It's like, where'd this kid come from? I don't know. And the kid explains his backstory of where he lives, how he got there, and what had happened was that he used, I think what it was is that when he got to Earth, he would go from place to place, much like Little Unico, pretty sure they're probably maybe the same person, from place to place on Earth. He would use seagulls, and he would tie them to like his belt or his sword or something like that, and they would carry him away to different places. And I believe that was emphasized in the movie, and I think also in the cartoon series, I believe. And so he'd go from place to place on Earth, having all these numerous adventures. And that's what the Little Prince said. He would talk about himself, so how he got here, blah, blah, blah. and the guy kind of rediscovered childlike wonder, much like ish, if you want to compare it, much like uh, I mean, it's similar in vein, not too close to, but similar to, like in the same ballpark as like the Neverending Story or Wonder Park or I forget. Um, Page Master. It's kind of something like that, where it's this kid that kind of goes on these numerous adventures. But once you get to the other IPs outside the book, and I think the book and the cartoon series, for definitely the movies and the miniseries, kind of take on this more of your inner child is more of coming to life or being manifested in this time of crisis. Because the guy's out in the middle of the desert, he has no real supplies, so the little prince just shows up out of nowhere in that movie, and he's all like, starts proclaiming things, and like, kid, go home. Where'd you even come from? It's like, where, what? And he says, we're gonna find water, and he starts marching off in the desert, and the guy follows him, and after like 3 miles or whatever, they find an oasis full of water. So, in the movie and miniseries, I believe the Little Prince is supposed to be a manifestation of, your inner child, and he has to try to rediscover his childhood, not dream, but outlook, personality. I guess it's supposed to be, don't forget who you are, I guess. Don't be too much of an adult. Of course, this guy's trying to survive, so it gets a little annoying. But we've seen stuff like this in some, in some TV shows, storylines, and movies, where characters have to, Bones, Stargate Atlantis, where characters are confronted by ghosts. Even that, Morning Edition, the paper, where it's like the paper from the future, from one day in the future thing. Weird. I don't know. Gets delivered, and there's a cat there that meows at 6 a.m. Again. Where they had that plot line where someone comes in and tells them about their past. But even on, not which, it was one of the ones coming with Buffy and Angel, the one with the 3 sisters. Darn, I forget what it's called. Before Supernatural, there was Charmed. Charmed, that's what it was. Yeah, there was an episode of that too, where characters would come in and help them, and sometimes this would be a manifestation of one's childhood, inner child. Sorry. And so that's basically what the miniseries and the movie were about. Now this one takes one step further. Oh, sorry. I should finish the story first. I don't know what happens in the book series. In the cartoon series, I think he just goes back to, his planetoid and makes up with his Rose, I would believe. In the movie and the miniseries, not entirely sure about the miniseries. I've only seen like trailers for that. But I think it was trailers for the miniseries. I think I'll have to look up the IP. But basically, at the end of the movie, because the Little Prince is a interior projection into the exterior world, that, or something. It's read that way. It can be read a couple different ways. But at the end of that movie, what ends up happening is the guy... criminy, I have to explain this. It was the 70s, and the 70s were a very kooky time in a lot of things, if not everything. Experimentation and storytelling, filmography, how to shoot something. And there is always, and if you want to watch it, watch Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory, the original. Yeah, Which Way the Rover's Rowing. In the late 70s, between 75 and 80, there was always the acid trip sequence. Alright? I just want to make that clear to you. Because people back then said, well, we got to put in the acid trip sequence. Well, why? Because everyone's doing acid right now. Acid was discovered. Acid is awesome. So they were like, well, we got to put in the acid sequence. What was it? Flowers for Algernon had an acid trip sequence. Why? Well, because they wanted to. It's like, okay, I'm watching that in elementary school, and I'm thinking to myself, because we read the book and then we saw the movie, just why? Like, why was that in there? And it's like, well, you know, it was like a motorcycle crash spliced with other random scenes, and it's like, okay. And then they wake up the next morning and it's like, well, I slept well. You know, they're on some sort of motorcycle slash honeymoon slash, you know, a countryside drive over the weekend before the final 20 minutes. So there was a scene transition of a motorcycle crash acid trip sequence. Because yes, it still bothers me. Things from childhood still do bother me after all these years. So yes. So for in the spirit of, you know, in experimental film writing and shooting and stuff, the little prince meets, not befriends, but meets this snake, giant boa constrictor snake that transforms into a guy that sings to him about something or other. But basically it's the trust in me, look into my eyes, trust in me, you know, that whole thing. Type of moment. So he meets him near the beginning when he says, I first got here. And then at the end, the guy takes his eyes off the kid, and the kid disappears. He's like, where's the kid? Where's the kid? Goes running around saying, look, I'm almost about to be rescued, or rescued myself, or whatever. And then he doesn't find the kid. And then what happens to him is that the kid gets eaten by the snake that transforms from a snake into a man. And then they show, like, the last, 30 seconds of the film, or whatever, is the guy with a big swollen belly because he ate the kid. Yeah. Probably why it's not a very popular film. Then the guy goes off and gets rescued and feels better about himself. The end. So, but anyway, I have the, right here, the whole cartoon series on DVD, so I'm going to watch that at some point. And, yeah, so I'm guessing the miniseries, if there is one, probably has a similar outcome. I hope not. And so now, let's get to this little gem. Now, this little gem is computer generated. It's rather quite good. And it takes place in the far future of basically 2016, 15, whatever. And basically it's more of a modern take on The Little Prince. And it's basically after the events of the book, cartoon series, and the film and the miniseries. So it takes place, this daughter and mom go and move into this house where it's very, very standard, very, everybody's like everybody else, you know, and everyone is very, very busy. It's like, no, we go up, we get up, we go to work, we come home, we sleep, we get up and go to work again, you know, much like my life. It's not too much downtime. So they are living this stringent life right next door to this eccentric old man who's trying to build a homemade plane, and the little girl kind of gets pulled into his world, almost literally, or basically literally, 40 minutes later, with his stories of how he met the little prince. So this is sort of a pseudo-ish um, sequel to, well, the movie series. Well, the movie that uh, he is supposed to be the aviator, the guy who fell into the desert. That's supposed to be him as an old man. He is trying to build a plane so he can fly off and meet the little prince again. So it totally negates the ending of the movie, thank God. And so he's telling all different stories, and it's much like, kind of becomes like the Princess Bride, where, you know, the old man is telling this young girl the story of, you know, this fantastic adventure of this little boy and this insightful little journeys. Again, meeting, you know, being on this planet, wanting to go to Earth, catching comets to other places before getting to Earth, and then using the birds to fly around, I would believe. And so, and all the while, the old man is, you know, getting sick. He passes out, and the little girl's like, "What happens next? What happens next?" And so she takes it upon herself, I don't mind her spoilers, to fly in the man's dilapidated, homemade plane. Yeah. The guy made like a giant slingshot or whatever, and ramp and everything that she also helped build because she's smart. And instead of doing her homework, she helped him build this thing better. So she decides, I'm going to go off and find the little prince, bring him back to the old man so the old man can feel better about himself. So she flies off, only to find that she's in the present time of alternate world. I don't know exactly. But she flies off and finds herself in the big city, because they're in the suburbs. So she flies to the big city and finds the little prince. But he's not little prince anymore. He's a... Reminds me of... Okay, anyone seen The Tick? The cartoon series before the creators, I believe, went off to go do the Venture Brothers? Okay. The cartoon series of The Tick, if you've ever seen it, is a really good spoof on superheroes. Much like The Boys. Shows the practicality and the silliness of, and the impracticality of superheroing in the real world. But basically, the Tick's big fear is being an office desk jockey, you know, paper pusher, an accountant. So that's basically what the little prince became. An accountant. He works in an office. He's this boring, you know, walking stiff of a person saying, well, I have to do my job. It's important I do my job. And that's the one thing kids are not very privy to, is why are adults so damn driven to do their job, which they clearly hate. It doesn't really seem to have much of a point to it. And they don't know what money is. That's funny. Yeah, it's one thing kids haven't learned. So the first 18 years of my life, it's never occurred to me, not once, to ever pay for a movie ticket. Yeah. It's never occurred to me in the first 18 years of my life. It wasn't until after that, well, when I got a job, someone asked me, so are you going to pay for yourself? Why? I'm going with you. I'm going with family. Why would I? See, it wasn't a thought of mine until after that. And it's like, right, I make money now. Sure. I left that all at home. But again, why would I? You know? It's never a thought that really occurs to people, particularly youngsters. Anyway, so she has to kind of like try to get him to remember what it means to be the little prince. Tries to remind him. And he slowly starts kind of coming around to it. He finally remembers, and his boss is the selfish old boss guy he met, you know, long ago. So I believe it was the same guy. I could be wrong. But basically, he defies his boss and remembers and flies off with the girl. and then she realizes the little prince has been the old man this whole time. That was his childhood dreams of being the little prince. And then when he kind of grew up, he became this walking stiff. So she realizes what became of him and why he was so dead set on trying to find, you know, to find himself again. Much like Toodles looking for his bag of marbles in Hook, you know. It's this sense of trying to reclaim something familiar, something old from a long time ago. I can understand that feeling. So the Little Prince is really layered, it's really good, and it also really depends on which medium you're getting it on. The book, the TV, the cartoon series, the miniseries, or the movie, or the CG prequel-ish movie. You know, it really does depend on which one you got when you were a kid, or which one you're trying to experiment with now. So So it's really a mixed bag, because each one is its own beast, even though it is kind of telling the same story over and over again, ish. You know, 3 out of 4 times or whatever. So it really does depend on how you want to approach this IP. You know, or maybe look at all of them and then decide for yourself. You know, depending on what age you are, you know, what side of the fence you're looking at here. So, yeah, I mean, check them out. See what you think. You know, maybe you'll like one or the other, or maybe all of them. Who knows? Well, I gotta get back. I want to finish watching this thing. I saw it back when it first came out, back in 2016, 15, or whatever. So I think it was on Netflix for a while. So I'm going to rewatch the movie and just enjoy my evening. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you. Take care, faithful viewer, and remember, see you at the movies. Bye.